So what we just looked at earlier is shooting at ballistic glass. So you've got a sample of it here. Typically it would be coming in something like 300 by 300 or 500 by 500 samples. This glass can be this sort of thickness, probably 3-5 centimeters thick, depending on the threat that you're trying to protect against. So if you've got an up-armoured vehicle, so it's an ordinary looking vehicle used by politicians and so on, that you need to protect against certain threats. In the old days, there would be BR2, for example. We mentioned that in that international standard, that means 9mm. So that's pistol shooting. Right the way through 4.4 Magnum is BR4, and then AK-47, serious rifle threats, is BR6, and BR7 is when you put armour-piercing bullets in that. So that's serious threat that you might be facing. So what we're trying to do is to test the glass according to those threat levels. So the customer says, I want a car protected to this perceived threat. So you'd fire 3 shots in a pattern like this, according to the threat. And if nothing came out of the back, no fragments, it's passed. And very simply, that's the test. Some people allow small fragments of glass to come out because that's still not a danger to life, although still not very pleasant. That's up to the user and the specification, but ultimately it's normally a pass-fail. It's held or it's penetrated. So what we do is we tend not to fire with a normal gun, a handgun, because they're a bit scary and they can point in the wrong direction and so on. So we fire through a thing called a universal receiver. It's essentially a large block of metal with a barrel put on of the necessary caliber. So we're firing 9mm, 9mm being the diameter of the bullet head. So that gets fired out of this universal receiver, so it's remotely fired, and you had a chance to see that operating. Goes through the velocity measuring system, so something like this. In fact, this is an outdoor system. Here we're using a framed system, which is typically used indoors. The bullet goes through there. We have 2 velocity measurements going on just for backup, because the same equipment is used for forensic scientists, people who may need to stand up in court and say that's the velocity, and the criminal offence, the level of criminal offence is based on that. So we have 2 readings to make sure we've got an absolute reading for our customers. Then the bullet goes through and finally hits the glass. Hopefully the glass has passed. If the glass doesn't pass, it goes through and it hits a fragment panel. That could be cardboard, it could be aluminium foil, and then eventually it goes through to a bullet trap where anything that's left over gets stopped.